Hey everyone, in this video I'll be ranking the strongest Vault Hunter in Borderlands 4 on a tier list. Now, Cash is the newest Vault Hunter, and I'll be comparing him amongst all the new Vault Hunters with their level 60 builds, as there are some very strong synergies that are now possible. Now, the thing with Cash is, all three of his skill trees are very unique in how they play out. Like this one here lets you go and throw cards, and then you get some crazy buffs to your guns afterwards. And I gotta say, across the board, with all three of the skill trees being very powerful, Cash may be the strongest character they've ever added to a Borderlands game. But for an overview of the characters that we'll be looking at, we're gonna start with Cash, go on to Vex, and then Rafa, Amon, and Harlowe. I'll give a brief overview here of Cash, the new character. He's got the Windfall. This is his unique trait, which lets him get some pretty nice buffs. So he can get upwards of 10 fortune here, or 20 with a perk in the blue skill tree, and with fortune you're gonna get nice buffs depending on which skills you select. Like the Sounds of Rain gives you increased critical hit chance the more fortune stacks you have. With this, whenever you reload manually, so not actually just pressing the R or square button on your controller, you'll have a chance to enter Windfall. This has 3% per stack, and you can have max 10 stacks, so it's 30%. This also will trigger when you use your action skill. So you can go into your action skill, and there's actually some here that'll give you extra benefits if that does happen. Now, whenever you're in your Windfall, you're gonna get increased gun damage and skill damage, but the other thing is when you're in Windfall, it treats it as though you've had max stacks of your fortune. So all these skills here that scale up the more fortune you have are now going to be maxed out. And that's not all. There's a lot of buffs to his action skills when you're in your fortune. Otherwise, these don't really do a whole lot of damage. I'm going to first go over the blue skill tree here for Sleight of Hand. This one is very interesting because it's all random. You don't get to choose what abilities you get when you activate your action skill. You got to roll the punches, but you do have control over which cards you do bring. I think that the blue skill tree is the most interesting, and it requires the most thought to play. When we look at the red skill tree, I think the red skill tree across the board has the strongest skill selections here, but the action skill, it's actually still very strong, but not as strong as the Sleight of Hand or Clairvoyancy, which is interesting. I really like the green skill tree for one of its very powerful skills, Can't Stop Winning. This gives your critical hits a chance for you to enter Windfall, meaning that if you have a fast firing gun, you're going to have a great chance of going into Windfall and then activating your skills. But we're first going to focus on the blue skill tree here. So the Sleight of Hand, Luck of the Draw. The crucial thing here is when you read through it, it says that your action skill will have greatly increased effects when Windfall is active. You typically want to have that active whenever you go into it. You do come with 2 stock cards, Fireball and Magic Missile. They're all named after D&D spells, which I think is funny. And if you can get the Fireball card while in Windfall, it's going to spawn Fire Mortars, which is nice for a bit of extra damage. The Magic Missile doesn't have crazy high damage, but whenever you activate it, you'll see the different cards that you get. Now, each of these has some cool benefits. So the Thunder to Table here, what's great about this is it can give you action skill cooldown rate. And Cash has a very powerful class mod called the Whale, which turns action skill cooldown rate into damage. So you can get a 600% extra action skill damage on this easily by using Thunder to Table when you're in Windfall. So each of these cards is a cool way in how you can use it. Cowboy Windfall State has insane damage. So whenever you're in Windfall, you throw multiple cards and they create a Corrosive Nova. The Acid Spray does 17k damage. This one is a massive damage dealer and a fun one to use as well. Now we also got the Big Pull, which has radiation damage. I find this one just to be kind of lackluster. There's even grenades that do a similar effect. The Cooler, however, is very powerful. Basically with this card, it does cryo melee damage, and that means that it can actually proc the Ground Breaker, which is insanely strong. So yeah, you can actually get some pretty crazy card combinations going, because if you use the Acid card here, which does insane amounts of damage, and then follow it up with one of these, this triggers Ground Breaker, basically almost one-shotting some bosses. And when you're in Windfall, this is a chance to freeze targets. It's pretty good. There's also the Bet on Red, which gives you a very strong lifesteal damage. It has a high critical hit chance, so you can actually get a lot of your lifesteal back. And whenever you're in your Windfall, it will now automatically kill all non-badass enemies and deal increased damage to enemies that are badass or above, which is pretty crazy. This is good because it's going to give you a massive amount of health back. And this will also give you a 30% damage reduction when it's active. It's pretty crazy. Now, we also have the Dead Man's Hand, which gives you increased chance to trigger Windfall, and it also has kinetic bone splinters. I find this to be a very weak card in general. But the reason we'd want this is we want to come down and take No Limit. This is a skill here that's going to give us increased Windfall stacks up to 20. It's actually insane. But the last two are very powerful as well. Sweet in the Pot will give you additional charges on your Sleight of Hand, but this will add random elemental damage onto your gun. And this is crazy because it counts as action skill damage, so it'll actually trigger the Hot Streak, somewhat similar to Infinite Crit Harlowe. This is whenever you deal gun damage Whenever you get a stack of forging, you can get an infinite or get a critical hit, and it does additional damage. So these work very well together. And then we also have the Furious Fingers. This one's actually kind of insane because whenever we activate Windfall, we get sleight of hand charges equal to the number of fortune stacks we had. So you can get 20 cards with this and just continually keep chucking cards. Even crazier when you have Thunder to Table, giving them 600% damage boost. And while these cards aren't very powerful, it's good to be able to just continually keep chucking cards. So this is what it looks like. We got the card there. It's going to give you the extra damage. It deals a random damage type. You got to look at the cards and you're going to get a feel for them. There's 2 green cards that look kind of similar. I'm not in my Windfall, so that wasn't very great. But now that I'm in my Windfall and I got my action skill back, you can see that we're going to be able to do a bit more effects with these cards. I want to try and wear down the shield, and this is the Acid Spray card. The Acid Spray is by far the best card, but being able to add all the action skill or add extra damage onto your gun is pretty crazy because you can see there that you do an insane amount of damage on top of your gun damage once this ends. This also contains Go for Broke, which is pretty funny because you can get +5 fortune stacks at a 20% chance, which allows you to just get max stacks really quickly if you're using the 20 there. But we have so many great things like the increased critical hit chance and gun damage per stacks. We can only consume half of our stacks. We stay at 10 when we have 20 of them. And this here does decrease your Windfall chance by your fortune, so you have a less likelihood of going into Windfall, but that's okay because we get the 20 stacks here, which is pretty strong. Furthermore, if you can get points into payout, this will give your fortune skills increased bonuses as well. And that's how you get this going insane. 5 points into that would be really nice. You also get increased critical hit damage. Oh, this is the skill that I meant to talk about. Whenever you are in your Windfall, you get increased critical hit chance as well. And then again, you get a lot of crits on this side of the skill tree. And if you're able to get a kill or go into Windfall, that's typically going to be ideal because you can see here, we are losing our steam here, but we need to have that crit to stay in there and get our cards back. So we Windfall up now, and that gives us our action skill damage 591% there. So that isn't even without perfect rolls, so you can get that even crazier. The thing is, using this class mod, you can see that my action skill actually isn't replenishing here, and that's just due to how the action skill itself works whenever you have a certain class mod on. And yeah, the damage from this can get pretty crazy too, but I do think this card, or the card cache, does require a lot more thought than the other Vault Hunters. And especially compared to the other skill trees here for cash. So I'm going to put this one into the A tier. I do think it's extremely powerful and has some pretty crazy builds. And I do know there's some cheesy stuff you can do with this, but the red and the green skill trees require a little bit less thought and have really good benefits. Now next we'll be looking at the Chaos Walking Crossfire red skill tree for cash. This one is also very powerful. He gets increased fire rate or critical hit damage right at the start here. He can also boost up his gun damage, which is fine, but also gets a chance to critically hit with action skills and guns. Giving yourself more crit rates is really nice. Now, Trick Shot is cool because this will create bone shards that'll actually splinter around and hit multiple enemies. And this is great because it'll actually trigger the War Wagon to give yourself infinite ammo. That's the best thing about the red skill tree is the infinite ammo that you get. So I like to have 1 point that can be grabbed by the Gamer class mod, which is one of the best for cash. And what's crazy, you can get your action skill back pretty quickly, and you can also get bonus damage with fire. It's crazy. Now, what's great about this, again, is that you can build off of your ordnance, or you can go all in on kinetic damage. Getting a 45% damage increase to your kinetic is great, but also the infinite ammo that you get from this is good. You also can make it so that your action skills get bonus kinetic damage, and then we can also, this is a really cool skill, convert elemental damage back into kinetic damage, and this is going to increase the damage that we deal by 75%. So this means that you could go with a fire gun and get your infinite ammo with it. It's so good. Now, one thing I do want to mention is this is best used with the green skill tree. Because again, Can't Stop Winning is just so good. Turning our crits into getting into Windfall is nice. It makes it so that we don't even have to really think with this. Now, the red skill tree also has a very powerful From Gloam to Glow here, which will turn, basically when you take damage, you can turn it into Overshield, and then whenever you lose a fortune stack, shots from our guns will deal bonus damage equal to our Overshield for 6 seconds, and it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Also, we can get some pretty crazy things. If we use like the Reckoning here, this is going to increase our damage when Windfall is active on our action skill. Now, this action skill actually hits very hard, as you're going to see, because you can turn it into a shotgun, and you can make it drop bone dice from the green skill tree. Now, using this action skill is pretty funny because we literally just went into our overdrive here, and you can see it's decimating this boss really quickly. You don't even have to aim or anything. It's going to automatically aim if you just have it in the middle of your screen here. And the damage from this is pretty absurd, as you can see. For an action skill without really any thought required, and you can drop down these badass mortar totems, and also you have your own totems. We can do a lot of damage even without it. So using just our guns here, I would say that this is the strongest alongside the green if you just want to focus on gunplay, because it's getting a huge boost to the damage, especially if you got like an elemental damage type there. I'm using one of the new, this is the Crow Source from the DLC. And the reason this is so crazy is because it enables us to use infinite ammo like you're seeing here. My ammo count on the bottom right hand side is not disappearing. It does take it from your reserves, however, there is a big nice difference about this. I got the second wind. It'll actually apply to our ordnance, and especially the new Heimdall weapon, which does some insane damage you're going to see once I get multiple heads shooting off. So yeah, you can run an infinite ordnance build with the red skill tree, you can run an infinite gun, you can really do whatever you want with this type of build. It's actually very powerful, and it just lets you use weapons like you would as Amon or Harlowe. And it also has a really fun class mod with the hot shot here, which turns the burst fire into like a fire beam, and if windfall is active, it'll always critically hit. This class mod also can give you Bloodstained Moon, so you can get all like the capstone skills. So yeah, you can imagine it is pretty crazy. So we go into our overdrive here. We don't have the infinite criticals, but now I do. So if I go in close and press and hold the mouse button, I do the spinning attack. This thing is weak or strong against fire, so it's not like ideal to do it there, but you get infinite crits with that attack, which is kind of cool. But you can even see here, we're doing so many crits with this just action skill, not even really thinking too much. It's a very powerful skill, and one that's actually kind of fun to use for an action skill, because you just whip it out. The thing is, it also lasts forever pretty much. Like you can see there, I got a kill and it refreshed the timing on it, so you can stay in this skill for a very long time, because every time that I'm trying to enter windfall and fail, it's going to reset the timer and make it go quicker. But for some reason, it just works very quick. Like it just works so insane. But you saw as soon as we go into windfall, the damage from this is crazy. So yeah, with this getting infinite ammo, huge boost to the damage from gloam to glow, and all these other skills, this is the strongest, I would say, of the red skill tree, and very good. I'd have to say this is an S tier build, very powerful. The action skill is the only downside, but even still, you just saw there, it can just melt bosses, like an insane amount. The guns will also get a ricochet chance when you're overdrive, so it's very powerful. And another thing, you can stay fully in the red skill tree. You don't have to add in the green, but since we have level 60 here, you get a lot more bang for your buck just grabbing that. Can't stop winning. Now, the green skill tree is really fun. This is the Roll the Bones or Claromancy. What I like about it is that there's actually some class mods that work very well with this. You roll 2 dice, and depending on the roll number, you're going to get a bunch of different effects. So when you roll Forge, you get the Mortar Totem. There's an Angry Totem, which is very good. The Angry Totem is actually kind of bugged here. When you roll 10s, it'll spawn that and gives you increased gun damage over time, and that'll scale all the way up to like 2,000%. It's actually kind of insane because you can extend the timing on it, and there's a lot of like little cheesy ways that may end up getting bugged, but this is very strong. Now, the green skill tree is mostly just suited for the green skill tree because a lot of these skills are only applicable to, or mostly applicable to the green skill tree. Like this one gives you increased skill damage per bone totem. And there's also an increased windfall duration here alongside being able to get your action skill time back on your bone totems, which is again, very powerful there. Now, as I mentioned previously, the Can't Stop Winning is one of the best skills in Cash's entire skill tree just because windfall is hard to get. Having to kill an enemy or have to kill an enemy to get your fortune, and then also having to manually reload your gun and have a chance to enter windfall is so difficult when you're mostly going to be using guns that, you know, especially with the red skill tree, infinite ammo. But this just gives you a massive chance to get that easier. This also gives you an increased critical hit chance, which is amazing. So you can continually keep buffing this up, but even just 1 point is nice because Turn of Faith is also insane. This is a windfall skill, but when it's active, you're going to get lifesteal. And this lifesteal will also give you overshield, so it's insanely strong. And Cash is really great to play with friends. He also gets a really fast movement speed as a windfall skill, but the wilds will add bonus elemental damage onto whenever your windfall is active for your companion. So yeah, this is pretty good. Very strong skills. They can also jinx targets, which makes the target deal 30% less damage, and they take 20% more damage. And you can activate this really easily with your bone totems. And there's even class mod that'll add this on too. Furthermore, you can get Tormented, which will increase the critical hit damage and additional against the jinxed enemies. So you can get like a 30% extra critical hit damage, which is kind of nuts. And you can also get increased action skill cooldown rate for every enemy that we have jinxed. Furthermore, you can also get lifesteal on top of this. And then at the very bottom, you can automatically critically hit jinxed enemies when you activate your action skill, which we have multiple charges. It's insane. Now, the only thing is, if you grab this, you won't have enough points to go down to the red skill tree to grab War Wagon, but whenever the level cap increases again, Cash is going to become even crazier. So if you do want to use War Wagon because it is extremely strong, you do have to take, like, you can get one of the capstones here, and then you can grab like 5 points into another. Now, this is most like a very random one, just like the blue skill tree here, but if you roll certain numbers like 12s here, you can actually get a Chaos Totem that'll throw cards from our card deck. It's so funny. Now, honestly, each of these is strong in their own right. They have different abilities here, and all of them are pretty solid. There's even ones like the Mighty Nine, which lets you revive if you were to normally go down, but it's that Angry Totem that is just really good. And due to the nature of dice, there's certain numbers that'll just end up getting rolled much more likely than others, like a 7, for example. And each of these augments also gives them a bonus effect, so it's pretty cool. Similar to the card when you get bonus effects on your character, but also these totems will do different effects. And there's also the Ludopath class mod here, which is really interesting because you take the number that you roll, and then let's say you roll a 10, you get a 30% fire rate increase and 50% movement speed increase. So you can get zooming really quickly with this. You have a max of 36 stacks. It's not easy, obviously, to roll 36 between a few different dice, but this is pretty crazy. Stacks last 12 seconds. I still prefer the gamer class mod. This is definitely his best. So with the Claromancy here, we're just basically going to throw the dice out. It doesn't require us to think too much. It's not like you have the cards there. We just roll a 10, which is like the best roll for us to get because it's going to scale our gun damage up quite a bit. Now, the best part about this is you can just set and forget your dice here. But yeah, I really like this one just because of the simplicity behind it. So you can literally just go around. You can still shoot your guns where you're throwing the dice here. So yeah, this one is very powerful. And you can see there, even if I'm just going to not shoot at them, we're taking care of business just with our bone totems here. They're mostly for the effects that they bring here. They can even get you into your windfall as you saw there. So very powerful, fun, and it's just really, it's kind of like the blue skill tree Vex, but I think this is a little bit better. This is weird. This boss still counts as alive. I can actually critically hit the boss. Yeah, weird. And lets us get into windfall, whatever reason. Not sure what's going on here. And again, I really like to do this with the infinite ammo just because this gets so crazy whenever you're able to just blast away like that. Now, you do have to be careful whenever using infinite ammo because if you don't have a kinetic-based weapon, you're not going to truly get that infinite ammo because it has to be kinetic damage. So that's one thing that you might want to keep in mind, but you saw there, insane damage. And honestly, between the green and the red skill tree, these are both very powerful. It's hard to say which of these is the better two. I do think the green is slightly better if you were to pick two of them, but it's best mixed. The green and red are so good together. So yeah, I'd have to say, I think that Cash is actually the strongest Vault Hunter we've gotten in Borderlands 4 at any point, just with all three of the skill trees being super great. Now, who's a good kitty? Unfortunately, Trouble did not get any really big buffs here. But you can still do pretty alright as Trouble just because of all the nice gear that got added to the game. But I will be honest with you guys, Trouble's kit is just really not as good as it should be. Now here comes Trouble, does have some nice skills in the skill tree. Like you can use this on anyone here. The enchantment will give you bonus kinetic damage with guns when our action skill is active. Now this only is active whenever you use a certain ability here, but it does have some really nice skills here. So things like the infusion, giving yourself bonus damage. There's also Grave Thirst. This is really good because it's a kill skill with 3 stacks. And if you mix in the green skill tree, you can get 3 more stacks of it. So you can get an insane amount of life steal on the Grave Thirst. But honestly, across the board, these are not super strong. The red skill tree is nice to boost up the green skill tree because you can increase the kill skill effectiveness here, and you can activate the Grave Thirst with that. And even in the green skill tree, there's ways to critically hit and activate your kill skills, but that's using the green skill tree. If you just stick with the red skill tree, unfortunately, it's a bit lackluster. And trust me, I've been begging and pleading for Gearbox to buff up Trouble. I didn't rank this very high last time I did a tier list, and I made some people extremely upset to the point they were like spamming me hate messages. So I am sorry, but Trouble is not that good. I have been begging for buffs. And Trouble is what I used my very first playthrough. I really like Trouble, but if you're in Ultimate Vault Hunter 6, like there is some considerations that the other ones are just a bit better. So here's the same crazed girl that I was using on my last character, and her damage isn't even like that great. So I'm gonna use all the action skills here. So it's actually not that bad. I got some crits off there. This is mostly coming from our bleed damage though, and the green skill tree. So if I were to stick with just the red skill tree, things would be a lot different. I'm just gonna not attack and let you see what Trouble's doing for damage. It's not much of anything. Beast mode is probably the best augment here, making it so that Trouble is immune to damage, because otherwise it's going down pretty quickly in Ultimate Vault Hunter 6. And Unsealed will give us 50% extra gun damage against a marked target. So there is buffs to us, which are nice. But yeah, Trouble's damage is not amazing, so I'm just going to stick Trouble on them there, and you're just going to see, I'm not going to attack at all just so I don't get the bleed damage doing anything. Trouble doesn't, yeah, Trouble died. That was very bad. And this isn't even a crazy boss. This is just like kind of a baseline boss just to give you an idea of what we're going up against. So yeah, Trouble is not great, unfortunately. You can obviously give it that immunity to damage, but once that wears off, Trouble goes down pretty quickly. They did buff Trouble a little bit, but yeah, we're getting a lot of our benefits there just from having the green skill tree here. I didn't even want to put this, if I were to show you guys just the red skill tree, it would be very bad just because there's not really a lot of stuff going on here that's kind of beneficial. To make the red skill tree usable, I did post a build if you guys are curious. To make it usable, you need to use things like Grave Implements and the Grave Power, and then get crits to boost up your kill skills and critical hit damage, and just go for crits. Yeah, that's really what you got. There is Ars Arcana, which will give you a 45% skill damage increase, which is better than pretty much every other buff for Trouble here. So even the green skill tree buffs up Trouble a bit more. But like, these are so bad. Like Keen Fiends. Critical hit chance against enemies for your minion only. The minion, you saw its damage, does nothing. This isn't even good. The best skills would be things like Grave Thirst here, giving yourself lifesteal, which is really nice. And Vex is really best utilizing her Teen Witch class mod. There is a new class mod from this DLC, but unfortunately it's also bad. The configuration will create blood rifts which shoot your damage off. You need to use an underbarrel to make this even useful, but it's not good as, like, she got the Teen Witch class mod, which is obviously your best, but the red skill tree across the board is unfortunately pretty bad. I'd have to say this is like it pains me to put it low, and again, I'm sorry. I want this to be better. I've begged Gearbox to buff Trouble, but if you're going in Ultimate Vault Hunter 6, you need to add the green skill tree, and even at that, it's very weak. Now, the green skill tree is Vex's best by far. The blue is also pretty good, but we'll get to that. The reason that the green skill tree is so good is because we got things that are going to increase our gun damage by 120% there with the great power. This will increase our critical hit damage an insane amount. Also gun handling, which is pretty good too for very great accuracy. We also get increased fire rate, a chance to activate our kill skills on crits, which is crazy effective at just getting our max gun damage up. We also have things that gives us a free, like, get out of jail free card. If you were to go down, you can explode, and this is crazy in Bloom Reaper. But we also got some very fun skills here. I think Vex is best in her bottom right hand corner here, because you got Ars Arcana giving a 45% skill damage. This got buffed actually, it used to not be that much. Now skill damage is different from action skill because it'll apply to Bloodletter, her bleed. So yeah, you can imagine the damage is insane off of this. But Essence Leech is also crazy because this is going to give us 10% lifesteal, and then when our action skill is active, which is Incarnate, insane, I'll show you guys that, this will give us 20% lifesteal. And this will actually boost up Blood's power. So this gives us bonus kinetic damage based on our current lifesteal when our health is full. So if you got things like the Teen Witch class mod, you're going to get yourself shield over shield, and this prevents your health bar from going down. It's 300% of your lifesteal. So it would be 30% and it's 60% whenever you got your action skill active. But we can also get things like lifesteal on our leeching attunement here. The class mod Teen Witch will add lifesteal, so that can go up quite a bit. It gives you a massive boost to your damage. But we also have Bloodshot, so once we use a rep kit, our next gunshot will become a Bloodshot, converting damage dealt into kinetic damage and bonus damage based on our current health. This also works with the new Hemorrhage gun, which is pretty strong. It is really fun to use. She also has things like Guns and Needles as a kill skill, which gets activated from Mortal Terror, which is amazing. But the big thing with the green skill tree is Witchy Trigger Finger. So this is our best augment by far, because whenever we use this, we get infinite ammo, because whenever it shoots at a target, it's going to replenish your ammo. It doesn't work on every single gun. If you shoot them like a Hot Sucker, obviously it doesn't work on anything that's got like a low ammunition amount. It won't work, but bigger ones work very well here because you get additional gun damage as well. And for our capstones, we have two great ones with Heart Piercer, taking our own health, or Vibe Check, which will replenish based on our gun damage. And this is really good for Bloom Reaper because it chains around to all the crystals. And normally I just like to use the Heart Piercer here. Now the green skill tree can benefit from adding in the red skill tree because we get enchantment for the extra damage, Grave Sustenance for missing action skill damage when we get kills, and then we can grab Mourning, which is going to give our kill skills increased effectiveness by 30%. So that further scales them up. So this will what it ends up looking like. So we go into our action skill there. Whenever you hit a target, it's going to replenish your ammo. So you basically just want to keep pressing down the, wow, that was fast. Yeah, the green skill tree is pretty crazy because you can just go in, do this attack here, you got your ammunition back, and then you can just hold down the trigger again and keep shooting your Eldritch Blast. This just gives you extra damage, and it lets you continually keep using your gun. It's absurd how powerful. You can see we killed that boss very quickly in Ultimate Vault Hunter 6. And I'm going to show an Ultimate Vault Hunter 6 True Mode, and for those that don't use True Mode, it's going to scale up the health 4 times the amount. So yeah, this is not going to be as fast as you can kill it in Ultimate Vault Hunter 6, but yeah, you can see there, we're getting the 4 times extra health here. We're still doing some pretty crazy damage here, and with this weapon, it's going to give you yeah, that's what I was talking about. This weapon gets extra damage the more pellets, kind of similar to the bod, and you just go and melee them to explode it. But with this infinite ammo, you empower the bod as well. You can just delete any boss in the game. They didn't nerf the bod, and that would be the best gun, but I really like the Crazed Earl, as you saw there. It also has something similar, but they're activated on melee. And honestly, I was thinking about putting the Incarnate in the A tier, like the high A tier. I do think it's a little bit better in the blue skill tree, but honestly, I think this is still A tier or S tier worthy, just because Vex also got some pretty crazy buffs to her survivability. I guess in the effects of that increased damage output. Being able to take 10 more points for Vex was really good. When her kill skills are so effective, just she wasn't able to actually get the increased effectiveness now, and now you can with the red skill tree. But honestly, her green skill tree is just by far her best. It is very, very powerful. For the blue skill tree, the fourth seal or dead ringer here, there's actually two really cool builds because you have not only the specters, but you also have wraiths here, or the reapers. The reapers are melee focused, and they're my preference because they are actually quite tanky if you use things like the hellish harvest. And you could also, if you go with the dark pact here, you can make them invincible and take another augment. So you can give the hellish harvest to give themselves that regenerating heal, but you can also then take the coven, which will give them health regeneration whenever you spawn reapers. So you can do some pretty crazy stuff with this, but the big thing is the melee ones are very powerful, and you can also take probably the strongest skill in Vex's entire kit with reverberations here. Melee damage dealt by Vex or her minions has a chance to deal incendiary melee damage, and it's a 50% chance with it does 150% of the initial damage dealt. It's a crazy boost for overall DPS, and it's really strong too because of how often we're going to be activating it. Now, you can also get increased incendiary damage and status effect damage from this as well to take this even a step further. But this has a few kill skills like the Grave Assault. So this has a max 3 stacks, increasing your fire rate. This will give you increased damage by 12.5% per stack. Max 3 stacks, we can get that even further. Another one that I'd recommend, the green skill tree, it's kind of a core principle of all the Vex's builds because of how good these skills are, like increased critical hit damage, increased gun damage, increase the stacks, more fire rate, so we shoot at an insanely fast rate, and then we also have the chance to trigger the kill skills when critically hitting. This only lets us take one of these here instead of going down and taking both of the trees, but I found this to be very powerful. You can go either of the ways. There's one other build here. Gasterbait is kind of cool because whenever you dodge, you're going to drop a specter and they become invisible, and they also are going to shoot off with whatever gun you have. Now, this will actually take your heavy ordnance too, which is kind of funny, so you can do some pretty crazy damage with this. Now, when it comes into combat, we want to be summoning in. I'm going to be using the Reapers here. I find that they were very good, but you can sometimes roll with 2 Reapers and a Spectre here just to have one that's going to be shooting at the target. And the thing is, we are going to get our kill skills to activate, and that's going to be a good boost to the overall damage of our minions here. We also have the Grim Reaper here that we can summon in. That's kind of the that's the capstone I chose from the middle there. Now, they don't have very high damage, you can see. Like, if I'm just going to stop shooting here, they're slowly chipping away the health bar. I should also mention this is in true mode, so I should probably turn that off, just because their damage is actually respectable compared to Trouble's. So, one of the things with this is that with these minions, they hold aggro for you way better than Trouble can because they're going to be flying around, they're hyper mobile, and they're just an annoyance. They're just so good at getting in and getting out and just distracting the enemy so well. So I'd actually have to say that the blue skill tree, while it's really strong, it just doesn't have the same oomph that the green skill tree has, as you saw. And of course, there are some fun builds you can do with it, but I'll just put the Reapers out here now, and I'm going to show you what they do. We'll swap our elements here so that they're a little bit more powerful against the shields here. And I guess they're staying fire there because it's whatever you summon them in as. The damage from them are not like super high by any means, but we're stacking, we're getting reverberations here. That's kind of the thing that we're going for. This gun is giving it to us, so you can look out for those red numbers there. Anytime they're getting that extra fire damage, the reverberations is proccing, which is actually a pretty nice boost to the overall damage output. But across the board, I do think that this one is a little bit weaker than Vex's other skill trees, or other skill tree green one being the main one, just because of the infinite ammo that you can get from it is just so crazy strong. So I'd have to say that the Dead Ringer is probably like a B tier. It's honestly a solid one, but compared to the others that we had on this list, obviously Cash is so busted, but the green skill tree is by far Vex's best. Now, to all the 3 fans of Rafa's green skill tree, he actually did get a class mod with the latest DLC pack that is specific to this one. Melee damage has a chance to cause a blade storm for 5 seconds. So, what does this blade storm do? Well, let's show you. The damage from it is pretty pitiful. You can see here, we got literal waterfall dance here, so similar to Millennia from Elden Ring. However, that damage is literally non-existent. It doesn't really do a whole lot of anything, unfortunately. It's just not good. The green skill tree is kind of weak. Rafa is one of the most fun characters to play, but it's primarily contained to his blue and red skill tree, primarily the red skill tree. Melee builds in Borderlands 4 just have not really been it. They haven't done a really solid melee character. I guess Amara's been pretty solid. I really like Krieg too, but yeah, this is leaving a lot to be desired. The green skill tree does have some fun abilities here, like the Midnight Oil, which gives you bonus corrosive damage whenever your action seal is active, and this can be pretty good. There were some pretty funny tricks that you could do by using like a healing drone and using the Altered Cabron, which would give you like an infinite damage scaling, but it was a glitch. Everything else in this kit is just mid compared to his other ones. His overdrive skills are alright. This gives bonus damage with all skills and ordinances and the element of our gun when overdrive's active, which is cool, but it doesn't really do a whole lot, unfortunately. I've messed around with the green skill tree, and the only way that you can get a good damage out of this thing is by actually using exploits, so it's really not that great. And we're better off just using our gun here, because even when we're in our skill here, even against these normal enemies, it's having a hard time finishing them off, even with using our action skill. Whenever Cash has his action skill that you just have to aim in the general direction with crossfire, and it's going to delete bosses really quickly. The green skill tree just kind of sucks, to be honest. I'm not really a big fan of it. Let me know if there's a crazy combination here that you use, because yeah, this one, it just isn't that good. So yeah, all things considered, Arc Knives is pretty poor quality there. I'm going to throw that down the D tier, but our red skill tree with the Peacebreaker cannons is one of the best in the entire game. He did recently receive a nerf to Bullet Buddy Deluxe as a shorter duration now, but it's still great. Infinite ammo is always a good thing here, and the Peacebreaker cannons and our overdrive skill can get pretty crazy because of Temerario. Now, I don't even have a really good roll of the Dancer class mod, but this is the one that you want, because you can get yourself an additional point of Soltado, which they buffed to actually make work. Previously, if you had that second point, it would only do 100%. It wouldn't actually give you an extra buff, but now you get an extra 50% overdrive bonuses when you get a kill. And this is crazy because Temerario is an overdrive skill, so whenever you get a kill, it's going to activate and double up our gun damage increases to over 700%. Now, in all honesty, the best skill tree would be go into the blue skill tree and then come down and take some of these skills like El Centro, because with Temerario, you do become quite inaccurate, but it's still very powerful, and I'll show you guys how strong that too does get. So whenever we're in our overdrive heal, you can press F to be able to go into the Bullet Buddy Deluxe. This is not matching up the elementals very well, but if we go into our action, oh geez. Yeah, whenever we get into our action skill here and use a gun that's strong against the boss we're going against, it does a lot more damage. And the damage from this does get pretty insane. So you can see our cursor's quite large. We're having insane yeah, it's very inaccurate. This boss, I have no idea what's happening now. What the hell? That was really weird. And you can see our gun damage goes up pretty crazy high. It actually can go over 700%. I just didn't set up this my skills correctly, but it can go over 700. And some people have told me they've got it over 800%, but that's really just the tip of the iceberg. You also have the shotguns. You can just literally, jeez Christ. And with this, you can also use some very powerful guns like the 7th Sense here, which normally is kind of hard to use. Wow, we have some pretty crazy accuracy going there. But what's crazy about this gun is it's going to do some pretty nuts stuff by, after you reload, you do an insane amount of damage there. But this, I didn't set this up properly. I went all in on the red skill tree. With this, you do want to have part of the blue skill tree, and I'll have something linked in the comments with a very powerful build, because it does get inaccurate unless you use something. You can see there, that is shooting very wide. So to offset that, you do want to take El Centro, as that gives you gun handling per second, which offsets our Temerario, but also the not deadline that gives you fire rate, but La Garza will also give you gun handling, and this build goes pretty crazy. The red skill tree is just so strong. Between all three of these different skill tree selections, it's really, really good. So with that, I'd have to say that this one is better than, I would say, Vex's green skill tree. It has higher damage. It's just green skill tree Vex has so much more defensiveness, but in this game, offensive just is a little bit better. So Peacebreaker cans, I do believe, is a slight bit better, but both of them are fantastic. And finally, we're looking at Apophis Lance. Now, what makes this so crazy is that with using the battery subscription service here, we can actually make this an infinite version, because there is a specific class mod that we can get, the Buster here, which gives 25% chance to not consume charge. The more charge you use at once, the greater the chance. This also can give you increased skill damage, and it can give you 5 points into Per My Last. Now, Per My Last used to be really buggy, and it would do some insane things. It's still pretty powerful, but using this can let us do some pretty crazy stuff. Basically, with the Apophis Lance, you do want to be using it as much as possible and shooting off with it. I'm using the beam version here. You don't want to use the beam. So with Apophis Lance, you're going to charge it up to those 4 shots and blast away. Now, there are some ways to make this even crazier. With this, though, you always want to be charging up to that 4th blast, because that's going to be the free one. It's going to turn slightly purple there, and you can also just attack while you're doing this too. So it is a little bit tricky to get the hang of the right trigger or left trigger attacking or using your mouse buttons here, but the damage from this is pretty strong, and it's nice. There are some other crazy builds that you can use with the Apophis Lance here, and you can see it just does a pretty solid amount of damage here, and it's unfortunate that one shot there. But Apophis Lance is a little bit more, like, it's more hands-on. You do have to do a bit more thinking while playing it, but it's still strong. And for that, I'd have to say it's a high B tier. It's better than the Dead Ringer. I don't think it's as good as the Card Cache, but I'm going to put it up in the high A tier. There are some fun cheesy type builds you can do with this, but yeah, it's a good one. But we do, the cache is just so crazy strong. But we're going to move on to Amon. And Amon across the board, unfortunately, is not that good. I was hoping we'd see some buffs, and even with the level cap increase, we can do some more interesting things, like Calamity here. The red skill tree has some of his best skills, but the blue skill tree has infinite ordnance. It is really the only way he can do damage. So with the red skill tree, our best skills are actually right down here, and now with the level cap increase, We can take our infinite ordnance from the blue skill tree and then also add in the red skill tree and then get something even crazier with My Touch is Death. Whenever we do melee damage, there's a chance to activate our kill skills. There is only red is a kill skill, and this is going to give ourselves extra damage. So whenever we go into Berserk, this gives ourselves 30% bonus cryo damage, and then there is only red is every time you get a kill, it's going to increase, or the duration gets restored 4 seconds. You get increased 60% damage per kill. It's scaling off of that there for maximum increased bonus 600% damage. So yeah, with My Touch is Death, you can actually use the blacksmith class mod, because this will give you different forge drones. So you can have the forge drones come in. Now normally forge drones suck, but they are melee damage, so they actually trigger that without you having to think, which is great. But Amon unfortunately still has his best class mod being a purple class mod, which sucks. Amon unfortunately is not really that good. The red skill tree, the red skill tree actually can work. It's pretty strong because of how groundbreaker and things like that work, so the melee damage from that is pretty nice. It does require a lot more thought and processes, and you do have to get like really good purples, and purples you can't really farm to get the most out of this. But the red skill tree is not as bad as this green skill tree. And whenever we're in our red skill tree here, so this is obviously like a melee damage focused one. It's going to be strongest when doing melee damage. But we do have our punch attack here, so you can go ahead with punching. It is fun, and this will act like it's good for the mobility. You can do some pretty crazy stuff with some interactions, but you can see the punching is like, it doesn't even do any damage. Like 500, are you kidding me? That is nothing. So yeah, he is pretty weak here in this form. It desperately needs a buff. If you're taking the red skill tree, you're taking it for the infinite ordinances, because even with the red skill tree, you can see here, I got infinite ordinance if you look at the bottom right-hand section of the screen there. So yeah, that is typically going to be the best. I should also mention I'm in Ultimate Vault Hunter True mode. I forgot to change that off. So it will be stronger if you're not in this mode, obviously, because that scales up the damage quite a bit. But yeah, you do have to use ordinance to actually get some respectable damage out of Amon. And you can see here, even if we're in this, it's still nothing fantastic. So yeah, this is just a, the red skill tree is tough to use. If you really want to use the red skill tree, you do have to use some different types of builds where you're using like underbarrel shotguns and things like that that do some pretty crazy damage, which didn't get nerfed or patched out. So I do think it's an intended mechanic. I will likely post a build on that in the future, but it requires so much more setup. You literally just can't go in and just punch your way through things like you want to do. I really wish melee builds were better in this game, but it's just the way the crookie combos. So yeah, across the board, the red skill tree also has the Dragon's Breath here. Whenever we activate our ordnance, we do get our gunshot will be converted to incendiary damage. This is pretty good. It's strong, but nothing actually spectacular compared to the others. And he also, I guess, has electrical fire, so whenever you burn an enemy, you also shock them. When you shock an enemy, you also burn them, which is pretty strong too, but it does require a big investment. So yeah, with the red skill tree, I'd have to say it's going in the C tier. I do think it's not like the worst Amon skill tree. We'll get to that. But I don't think that the Phase Familiar is like worse than it by any chance. But the blue skill tree, Vengeance. This is a good one because you get a big shield. So even if you don't really use your action skill, you'll at least have a shield that can block damage. The big components of this is Tail of the Common. Whenever we deal ordnance damage, there's a chance to apply a cryo status effect that deals damage over time. This also can be upgraded with our anything that's going to increase our status effect application chance. But this is a status effect that counts for Primal Surge. Whenever we apply a status effect, there's a chance to partially restore our shield and ammo. So yeah, you can get infinite heavy ordnance by using this, and it is really strong. Furthermore, you can also make it so that your ordnance have a chance to critically hit, and it's actually, you can take more points now with the level cap increase. Scourge Kairos also gives you increased magazine size, which is nice early game, but also more ordnance damage. So early on, like, Amon's not terrible. Now, the one thing is we want to use Firewall for ordinances, so we don't actually want to use a Capstone because they increase your cooldown time. So yeah, that's one thing that's kind of silly with this. Unfortunately, I was not recording that section. I kind of screwed that up. So yeah, with the heavy ordnance here, you can put down the wall and it will sometimes block projectiles, but ordnance is really the only thing that Amon has going for him without having to do anything like super cheesy. So yeah, he is kind of like not a fantastic Vault Hunter, I'll be honest. I really was hoping for some buffs to Amon, and maybe they will give him some in the future. They said they put the most thought and effort into Amon, and unfortunately it doesn't really show because his builds are just not really that good. But Vengeance is at least something. He's great at heavy ordnance, but even Cash is better at heavy ordnance. So I'd have to say Vengeance is probably like a Apophis Lands is good, but I do think that I'm going to toss Amon a bone here and put it above Apophis Lands, because at least with Rafa, he does have Peaceburger. Yeah, it's a tough call, honestly. Infinite Ordnance is pretty solid. I will put that above Apophis Lands, but let me know your thoughts if this should be better there. But when we look at his cybernetics, like, this isn't even worth showcasing how bad it is. It's seriously bad. Like, they need to rework this somehow. Maybe make it so that you can melee with the axes and they're good, but whenever you're in this form, you basically are doing nothing. You can see the eruption damage, their detonation damage is 221k whenever we're at this level here. It's hardly enough damage to do anything. The forage drones are worse than the bone totems, are worse than Vex's minions. They do nothing. Literally everything in this skill tree is just not really that good. It is fun to have the forage drones flying around, but they're just not good at all. You can get Endless Bombardment to give your heavy ordnances a chance to replenish ammunition, but you can get this from a class mod that'll boost up your other ordnance skills even better. So yeah, there's nothing really redeeming about the green skill tree in any capacity, to the point that I'm not even like, no point in me showcasing it. It's just that bad. There's not even like cheesy builds you can use with this to get crazy damage. It's just a not good skill tree that I hope they rework and consider changing in some capacity, just because of how awful it is, really. Yeah, it doesn't really have anything going for it at all. You can increase the gun damage that the enemies take by putting primed on them, but yeah, this basically doesn't really do a lot of anything across the board. All of his abilities are pretty weak. I did have fun, like the Searing Cold, making your frost axe freeze on contact is kind of nice, but even that doesn't work on bosses. So he struggles across the board with every single part of this build, and while it's fun and probably the most badass action skill in the game, throwing axes is always cool. It's just by far the worst. I'm just gonna throw this at the very bottom of the D tier. It's just not good. And let me know if you know a build that's powerful for this, because I just don't think there is really any. Now Harlowe. I honestly think that Harlowe is the strongest Vault Hunter until Cash came along. Now it's tough. I do think that Cash is a little better in certain circumstances, but Harlowe's still extremely strong. And she got actually quite a big nerf, or quite a big buff here. Now, she was nerfed previously. Neutron Capture only deals radiation damage now. Not a lot of bosses are like weak to that, so this is kind of a nerf, and you can boost up radiation damage quite a bit with the skill tree. The damage is still insane, but we can add in the green skill tree now because we have more levels, so the green skill tree can actually give us infinite ammo too, and we get a bonus radiation damage, and you can do some silly stuff with the excited state, which previously is the infinite crit Harlowe. Now it can be applied to the red skill tree. So basically what we want to be doing is we want to shoot off our Spirit Bomb here, the Chrome Accelerator, and you want to detonate it whenever it's right on the enemy there. And whenever you detonate it, you're getting all that damage added to your gun. You saw it there, that boss got melted. And yeah, it's pretty insane. You see, we don't really do crazy damage there, but the moment that we activate that and then it blow it up again, our gun just gets so much damage added to it. It is only radiation damage, so it's not good against certain health bars, but it's more than enough because adding 4% of your action skill damage onto each shot. Guns like the Wombo combo here shoot extra rockets off, so it's an easy way to get extra damage. There's also a new bismuth tip dagger that was added to the game. Get down with the bismuth. Basically, it's going to make the target take 15% more radiation damage. You get the radiation version, and that's silly because you can get one that has 8 charges here. So you can literally just start chucking these knives at the target here and get an insane amount of radiation damage weakness off on the target. And then we can use our action skill, which is going to do radiation damage, and they're weakened to it so that we can then get more damage onto our gun here, which they are weak to. So it can be pretty crazy. That was probably not the best gun to use. The Stray is good, but you also get your action skill back insanely fast. Like, we literally got it back already. You can just keep blasting away with it. So yeah, the moment that you get it back, you're likely going to be able to get it back again pretty quickly. And it even works well with some of the new weapons in the DLC here. So I'm going to detonate that, get our infinite crits off so we get our ammunition back. And you can see this gun here shoots multiple guns at the enemy there. So it is pretty silly how powerful the red skill tree is. The biggest weakness I would say is that it's going to be good against certain bosses and weaker against others, because the neutron capture, just being by far the best augment, will turn it into radiation damage. So certain bosses do counter us, but we're just putting out so much damage that it's actually kind of insane. And with the level cap increase, being able to go further in the green skill tree is incredible. So I'd have to say, we'd probably, red skill tree is better than the Peaceburger cannons because Rafa did get a nerf. It's hard to compare these two because like, obviously Cash is so new and obviously playing him quite a bit, but these skill trees are very powerful and can do the exact same things that Harlowe can do. And the thing is, with this amazing red skill tree that Harlowe has, Going with the green skill tree is arguably crazier because all these skills are so good. So with the green skill tree, what makes this great is Nuclear Winter. Whenever we're in our Flux Generator, it adds bonus cryo damage onto our guns. And what's crazy about that bonus cryo damage is that it counts as action skill damage. So it will set up Excited State whenever we deal an action skill damage, our next shot does infinite automatic critical hit. It becomes infinite critical hits. It's insane how powerful this is. And it actually is true crits. It previously was not a real critical hit, now it is, so you get even crazier damage, and this boosts up our damage even further. Now, what's also great about this green skill tree is you can get life steal against entangled enemies. You only need 1 point because the life steal is just so high, but you can also put this on and get overshield too, which is great because the Watch for Dinner is a great shield here. Which takes us to group study. This makes you a great person to play alongside if you're playing with friends, because this is going to give increased gun damage, and it gives a Halo sidekick for everyone that's in our thing. So we get 25% gun damage per activation, increased fire rate, and you can activate this multiple times, and it's going to follow you around, so you got a Nuclear Winter at all times. And furthermore to this, we don't even have to go into the red skill tree, but you can take some extra damage there. But we got things like Decoherence, giving ourselves increased damage to entangled targets. And there's even class mods that'll give you even further amounts of that. We also have things like Feedback Loop. Whenever we entangle an enemy, we get action skill damage and duration and action skill cooldown rate. There's also the Latent Charge, dealing bonus damage with guns the more full our overshield is. And again, we have that there, giving us extra overshield. So you have some pretty crazy abilities here. You got increased status effect chance. You can entangle enemies on that. We can also get ricochet chance against entangled enemies. The green skill tree is just so action-packed. The best skill I do think though is Confirmative Reality. Whenever we shoot an entangled enemy, we get 1% of our action skill cooldown back. If you have a fast firing or shotgun type gun, you get your action skill back pretty much immediately. And one of her best skills is, since we got those critical hits, the critical funding gives you your ammunition back. So she can do infinite ordnance. She can do really anything. So with this, you're just going to use your action skill. You throw this orb here, and then it gives you your critical hit damage. You can see there, all those shots are crits, and we do some insane damage with it. What's better about it is that you can actually use some of these new guns here that requires you to, yeah, wow. This gun requires us to not reload, because then we get additional guns that shoot off additional projectiles. But yeah, whenever we throw that out, the great thing is you can always just go ahead and throw off your ordnance here. So this is the Heimdall, and you can watch in the bottom right-hand section that you do have to get a couple shots off, and it will give crits. You can see there. This just becomes pretty crazy, especially because with this, yeah, it's melting bosses. So new weapons, buffed up Harlowe, new level cap, really buffed up Harlowe. This green skill tree is just so very powerful, and it's great for playing with friends, getting your action skill back. And the funny thing is, this basically does everything that the other skill trees do. So overall, I think that Cosmic Brilliance is honestly one of Harlowe's best classes or best abilities here. Now, it's hard to compare these two because the green and the red skill tree both have such great abilities, with the green being able to get yourself into Windfall, the red having infinite ordnance. These kind of go together. I do say the best, if you were just to take these in isolation of each other, like this is what it would look like if you could only stick with one of the classes. But since you can mix and match, these two obviously combine so much better, and it's a tough one. I'd actually have to say it depends how you're going to rank this, because you could easily throw Cosmic Brilliance at the very top of this if you're just looking at just going with that one skill tree, because the red one's great, but the red one does struggle with the red can't actually get into the Windfall easily without the green, and that's where the red gets massive amounts of its damage from. So otherwise, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot here. So yeah, I might just put it right in the middle somewhere. It's a tough one to rank. And unfortunately, Harlowe's blue skill tree 0 point, this is strictly for mobbing. Harlowe does have two really powerful skill trees that can just decimate bosses, but the blue one is just so bad because it's only meant to be used against enemies that are just trash mobs. It's not meant to be used against bosses. I've tried every possible combination here, and it's just not good. This is another one that's, I'm not even going to show it to you guys just because of how bad it is. It doesn't do anything fast. You just see me shooting my guns and crying that it doesn't actually do anything. Yeah, it's meant for mobbing. The thing is, Borderlands 4 does not have good mobbing content yet. Hopefully we'll see some future things, maybe enemy waves. This would shine there, but since we don't have anything like that, and the best skill, Unstable Isotope, is now accessible on a very insane class mod with the Phlebotomist, yeah, you don't need to take the blue skill tree whatsoever. This is crazy. It also adds extra damage under Harlowe's attacks, but it gives you Unstable Isotope, which is a kill skill. After you get a knockout, you're going to get 35% bonus cryo damage, so you can freeze targets really easily. That'd be the best skill in this entire skill tree, and it's just not good at all. as much as I wanted it to be good, it's unfortunately pretty rough. So I'd have to say it's probably somewhere around there. I could probably restructure this list a little bit, maybe like bring Apophis Lance down a little bit, and that might, yeah, maybe Vengeance down somewhere around there. But it just goes to show power creep is real. Cash is so powerfully good. I gave my spiel on where green. If we're just looking at just the skill tree, the green Harlowe is the best. But if we're looking at multi-classing and putting two skill trees together, the green and the red cash combo is just so crazy good. And honestly, the blue skill tree, I could even see this going up somewheres here, but it's much more complicated, and the damage you get from the other ones is just so high. But this was a tough list to combine and rank, but it is real. Cash is strong and fun to play. And our powerful Harlowe builds, it's kind of tough. I might actually say Peacebreaker Cannon is a little bit better. And Incarnate Vex might be a slight bit better just because it doesn't have the radiation downside of this one. You could even put Creative Burst down to maybe like the A tier, somewhere like that. And like, if we really wanted to rebalance this a little bit, it might look like something like this. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm always happy to hear what people think of these, because maybe I missed on something and like cybernetics is crazy. Probably not, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below for more Borderlands 4 content. We'll see y'all in the next video.